Look around you. The American culture and the American family is self-destructing. Shortly after birth, our children are rushed into the arms of grandparents or daycare attendants. For the next 18 years, they will spend the majority of their waking hours each week in an institution, not with their parents. Question: why bring them into the world if we're going to expect others to raise them? Substitute parenting is killing the American home. In this series on substitute parenting, we have discussed the history of the problem, the necessary treatment in order to safeguard the security, time, as well as dream of the family, and we have identified the essential leadership roles of men and women. As we conclude, it is important that we expose the greatest hurdle which stands between us and change: the excuse. Perhaps the greatest rationalization used to defend substitute parenting is this: we both have to have a job in order to pay the bills. As we conclude this important series, I want to dispel the broad-brushing myth by providing just a partial list of money-saving suggestions. First, let's notice food. What if parents trained their children to eat for nutrition rather than taste? What if parents disciplined their children to be thankful for their food rather than picky? What could be saved if parents cut back on the varieties of breakfast foods? What could be saved if parents eliminated the sugar-filled sodas? What could be saved if parents refused to eat out and/or eat on the run? What could be saved and gained if parents taught their children to raise a garden, chickens, livestock, etc.? What kind of impact would healthy eating have on a family's obesity and therefore the rising costs of family health care? What about clothes? What if parents instilled such confidence in their children that popular trends of expensive clothing did not draw them into vanity and materialism? What could be saved if parents sold all the outfits that haven't seen the light of day in months? How many pairs of shoes does one person really need? What could be saved if parents conquered the worldly distractions of vanity and took advantage of hand-me-downs, carport sales, and thrift shops instead? How about electronics? What if parents insisted on more realistic hands-on outdoor hobbies? What if they avoided the electronic junkie with reading free books from the library? How many gaming systems, big screen TVs, and video players does one family really need? What could be saved if parents practiced self-discipline and eliminated cable, satellite dishes, and premium channels? How many cell phones, laptops, desktops, tablets, and internet access points does it really take to stay connected? What about toys? What if parents taught children to use their endless imagination by playing in the dirt with free rocks and sticks, turning common household items into playthings, and going on adventures in their own backyard? How many toys does one child really need? What could be saved if parents took advantage of hand-me-downs, carport sales, flea markets, and thrift shops? What could be saved if parents looked past the pressures of popularity and materialism in order to train their children how to enjoy Christmas and birthdays without gluttonous celebrations? How about addictions? What if parents taught their children to respect the words of the Apostle Paul when he said, "I will not be mastered by anything," 1 Corinthians 6, verse 12. What could be saved if parents broke the addictions to smoking, alcohol, caffeine, sugar, etc.? What could be saved if parents resisted the addiction to shopping and eating for pleasure? What could be saved if parents avoided the addictive consequences of driving instead of walking, eating processed foods instead of cooking fresh, hiring lawn care and/or house cleaning services, etc.? What could be saved if parents broke the addiction to hoarding things and the rented storage units that are required in order to house all the unused materials? What could be saved if parents eliminated the entertainment addiction to expensive vacations, sports channels, live gaming, big boy toys, etc.? And how about credit? What if parents taught their children through example that it was more satisfying to save for something rather than buying it on credit? What could be saved if parents practiced self-discipline and waited until they could afford conveniences? What could be saved if parents eliminated the credit cards? What could be saved if parents insisted on patience and taking turns rather than supplying every driver in the family with his own vehicle, fuel, license, insurance, maintenance, etc.? What could be saved if parents resisted vanity and materialistic gluttony by living in a smaller house with reduced mortgage payments, property tax, utility bills, maintenance expenses, etc.? And then there's the full-time homemaker. What kind of security, organization, and money-saving advantages would the family receive by a wife and mom who could give her full attention to the career of homemaking? What could be saved if parents didn't have to pay for daycare and after-school babysitting? What could be saved if parents didn't have to pay for extra fuels to reach daycare and after-school babysitting? What could be saved if parents didn't have to pay for an additional vehicle to reach daycare and after-school babysitting, license, insurance, maintenance, etc.? What could be saved if parents didn't have to buy additional work suits and shoes in order to go to that additional job? What could be saved if parents didn't have to pay for additional lunch breaks and eating out at restaurants, since eating out is often twice as much as eating at home? What could be saved if both parents didn't have to be so distracted by an outside career and one of them could give dedicated focus to budget-saving ideas? What could be saved if parents taught their children to be entrepreneurial through a home business that complements homeschooling? You see, when all the expenses are finally taken into account, then placed side by side with the after-tax income, one finds that a woman's job outside the home must pay extremely well in order for it to really be worth having at all. And even if it does provide a profit margin, one still has to ask if the extra money is really worth the hassle of having both parents preoccupied and forced away from the home in order to earn it. The list of money-saving suggestions really is endless. We live in the richest, most conveniently pampered culture on the planet. The question is not, can we? The question is, will we, for the sake of our family? Substitute parenting is killing the American home. As Christians, we owe it to God and to the world to set a better example. It's time to live up to the promise that we made when we came to Christ. It's time to put the living sacrifice of Romans 12:1 and 2 back into practice. What will you do to reestablish a positive generational momentum? It's time to discard the false teachings about a mild-mannered Messiah. It's time to embrace the actual nature of Christ. Grace is not always warm and fuzzy. When the house is burning down around us and materialistic humanism has lulled us into a disastrous slumber, blunt and to the point might be our only salvation. Please join me on live Facebook every Friday morning at 11 Central Time for an expanded discussion of topics like this. Last Days Live examines end times current events and real-time applications for the vigilant Christian. Archived recordings can be found at sunnychowls.com.